Hello and welcome to One on One. I'm Saurav Roy and I'm in Paris to meet the Karmapa, the man who may well become the supreme leader of Tibetan Buddhism. Currently, that position is held by the Dalai Lama. In 2014, the present Dalai Lama Tenzin Gyatso announced that he may be the last Dalai Lama ever and there would be no more successors. The reason? Well, he feared that the centuries-old tradition of the Dalai Lama might come to an end if his successor or reincarnate was born in Chinese-controlled Tibet. That would give China a free hand in bringing up the Dalai Lama as its own mouthpiece. And this is what precisely happened in the case of another High Lama, the Panchen Lama. So where does the Karmapa come in? He's the head of the influential Karma Kagyu tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. His name is Ogyen Trinley Dorje and he's the 17th Karmapa. Born in 1985 and at the age of 7, he was identified as the next reincarnate. When he was 14 years old, he fled from Chinese-controlled Tibet into India. That annoyed China, as it had already recognized him as the only living Tibetan Buddha. Now, when the current Dalai Lama passes away, many believe millions of Tibetans will have only one person to turn to, the Karmapa. Your Holiness, welcome to One on One.
Thank you.
You've been the Karmapa for more than 2 decades and you've got millions of followers now. But in the last 2 decades, the world has changed. What do you think are your main challenges now?
The first time I heard that I'm the Karmapa, that time I have a very simple sort of idea about Karmapa. Maybe when I become Karmapa, I think I will get more toys or more people will play with me. But later I found that it's actually situation is not that is the case. Maybe it's you being restricted in a very traditional sort of environment. You can't live but that normal, normal boys, their life. And then I came to India more sort of because I left my parents and my friends, everything in Tibet, and coming to this unfamiliar sort of country, and I think. And also lots of political things, lots of suspicions involved. Then I think sometimes I really lost the way, sort of lost the direction of why I need to come here. But of course, and also it's, I think traditionally Karmapa have very maybe just spiritual sort of responsibilities. But now in the world, it's because it's lots of things involved, lots of things happening in this world, this century. People need different guidance, not just like simply just religious guidance, but people need different instructions, maybe different sort of way of thinking, and then I think it's the responsibilities become more sort of difficult, or maybe you can say it's complicated, and I feel like that.
Right now we're living in turbulent times. There's war and terrorism everywhere. Whether you look at Syria, whether you look at Iraq, Yemen, there's unrest in Europe as well. Do you really think that the formula for compassion will work?
I believe that the sympathy, or maybe we can say empathy or compassion, is hardwired. It's kind of inborn quality. We human beings all have this kind of noble qualities. But I think due to the circumstance and the situation, maybe you can turn it off, or maybe we can sort of become less compassion, then become very aggressive. None of them is born in terrorism. Maybe they are because due to their environment, due to their circumstance, they have become very sort of that aggressive. That's why we should sort of go back to the sort of very basic issues that what we can do to improve their sort of this kind of, to build a sort of environment so that they can nurturing their this kind of sympathy or compassion, because they need in that kind of environment the space, like we do in the sort of language skill. We all have language skill, but we do need sort of this kind of environment or space. We can use that. Otherwise, maybe if one child, spend years in very, a remote place, nobody's there, then I think he will forget all human languages, something like that. I think we should sort of go back to this sort of very basic issue.
One of the direct results of war and terrorism is millions of refugees around the world. And we notice that countries are closing their doors. How do you expect people to open their hearts then?
I think, of course, this refugee issue, it's also become a sort of very big issues in European countries. But I think to accept the refugee is not the only sort of solution, because if you don't solve the problem on the very basic, like in the Middle East, something happened in the Middle East, maybe that is responsible for a lot, different countries, maybe some Western countries, they also have some responsibility. If they don't sort of take care that issue, then I think refugee will continue. All the suffering will continue. That's why we should sort of the same issue there. We should go back to this sort of basic issue: what things happening in their country, in the sort of in the war zone, those Middle East country. What thing we can do them, so that the countries become. Could we sort of make some change so that those countries become more peaceful, become more sort of harmony with the sort of each other? Maybe I think that is the sort of very basic solution.
We're also seeing another extreme of lots of Buddhist monks going on a rampage in Myanmar, killing Rohingya refugees, and also that a lot of Buddhist followers are carrying out self-immolation in Tibet or outside Tibet. Do you basically agree with these expressions of anger?
I think Burma issues, that Myanmar issue, I think it's a very sad issue. I think that I saw some stories and news. I think that any monks or any sort of Buddhist practitioner is involved in this kind of very complicated, and also it's, you can say it's a violent sort of activity. It's not acceptable because because we know the Buddha is the sort of symbol of peace and compassion. We are the follower of Buddha. We are the follower of Buddha. We should sort of, any kind of circumstance, we should sort of can't sort of give up this kind of very principle, teaching of Buddha, that compassion, we should believe in compassion and peaceful. And also I think especially a monk to lead this kind of conflict, I think that is, I don't know what to say. I think this is, it's not just sort of it's not just affect his own sort of reputation, but it's affect whole sort of Buddhist reputation. I think that is very bad sort of kind of bad idea or maybe bad action. And also the sub-immolation related, the issues related to that sub-immolation. I think I'm continually, from the beginning until now, I continually appeal that people should cherish their life, because one issue is maybe we are Tibetan is minority. We should live continuous to the Tibetan cause. That is the and also even though they are not harming other people, but they're harming their this very precious human life. That's why I think this is, and also some of them have it's mothers of 4 or 5 child. I think that is very sad. It's not like people saying, oh, those great, like hero, heroines. Like, I think that isn't. It's not enough. That kind of praise. It's just kind of, because we need to understand those sufferings, that not just that, their families and also friends. I think that's why and also one way we can't even though they're dedicating their life, but we can't see the result. That is the most sad things. That's why I think we should stop this, sub-immolation.
You are an inspiration for many people around the world. And in times when there is hatred against one religion versus the other, especially when there's Islamophobia spreading its tentacles around the world, how do you bring compassion for people who bear Islamophobe? How do you tell them that all the religions more or less have the same teachings?
One way it's very difficult. When I saw those stories or those news, I also sometimes have hard to generating compassion for them. But I think one way maybe it's quite easy, because their mind is brainwashed, or maybe they are giving by how to say, we call it wrong view. Maybe it's controlled by those kind of very disturbing emotions, anger, hatred, because too much hatred, too much ignorance. That's why I think we should be more compassion for them, because they are in this kind of very ignorant, very hatred circumstance. Like, we also have sometimes we become very angry. Then that time we lost, we just become another person. We do some very big mistakes. I think same situation. Maybe they are brainwashed or manipulated or something. I think one way it's maybe easy.
You're one of the very few global religious leaders who supports women's rights and women's equality. Very few religious leaders in today's world do that. Why do you do this? And do you think that the day would come when we would see a female High Lama, maybe the next Karmapa or Dalai Lama, as a woman?
Why I need to do this? I think maybe because of my mother, because I can't see my mother maybe almost like 16 years. I can't do anything for her because it's too far away. But I think maybe to do some service for this female, enlarge. Maybe this is, I think it's kind of symbolize my gratitude for my mother. I think that is the kind of motivation I have. And of course in the future, maybe at the moment, maybe it's Tibetan people is not ready to accept, or maybe female Dalai Lama or female Karmapa, and maybe they're not ready. Maybe in the future, maybe I think it's possible, because in the reincarnation kind of system, we don't deny any kind of any form of reincarnation, whether it's male or female or animals, any kind of sort of reincarnation. It's possible. That's why I think it's not a problem.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama has already announced that there might not be another Dalai Lama after him. And given the fact that the Panchen Lama is under house arrest, millions of Tibetans around the world are looking towards you to be their supreme leader. Do you think that's a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility?
I don't see like extra pressure, because I can't be the sort of like what we people talking about this, next Dalai Lama or something like that. Next Dalai Lama, only this 15th Dalai Lama could be its next Dalai Lama.
What about your role as a supreme leader?
Yeah, I think it's, of course, I think we are among of the young leaders. We have maybe responsibilities with the Tibetan people and the future Tibetan cause. But I think it's I'm already Karmapa. It's already in the Tibetan history. It's become very important, and also historically it's very sort of maybe longest history. Have the longest history. That's why I think it's already been Karmapa. If I can play that role properly, then I think that is good enough to be the sort of, otherwise I can't be another sort of position. I think it's very difficult, because I already feel very heavy, then I can't take extra sort of responsibility. Yeah.
But when the time comes, people don't have any option, they will turn towards you.
Yeah, but I think that is the sort of, people have that sort of freedom, but maybe it's up to them. But I think I'm speaking by myself, because I'm, it's like still a human being. I think
no one's clear, especially in the Western world, about the whole system of reincarnation. You became the Karmapa when you were 7 years old. Your own story of being the next reincarnate of Karmapa, what does that tell to cultures and societies that do not know the importance of reincarnation, and what's the main message out of it?
When I was at the age of 7, the search party came. They first interviewed my parents. That time they didn't say anything, but the second time they came, then that time they told my parents, your son is the reincarnation of Karmapa, because they have the letter lived by the 16th Karmapa. The letter mentioned which place, which sort of direction, which then parents' name, everything is mentioned in the letter. That's why it's your name, everything is according with that letter. That's why I think you are the Karmapa. Because of course in the Tibetan tradition they have different ways of recognizing the reincarnation, but this is our sort of our own tradition, or maybe you can say it's a way of to recognize the reincarnation. I think that also, I think it's kind of whether you believe reincarnation or not, but I think it is kind of to choose somebody to give this sort of responsibility, or maybe to build a sort of opportunity to give you this kind of big opportunity to serve the sentient beings. I think this is the message. I think because even though you are an ordinary person, but if you can have this extraordinary heart or maybe motivation, then you can serve this sort of entire sort of humanity. Yes.
We get to see news from around the world, and we see that Tibet is now flushed with
wealth, and there's so much of material comfort over there. Do you think that Tibetans are now forgetting the cause?
Maybe not. Maybe because even though it's, of course, they have lots of material progress, material development there. One way the people is not satisfied that only the material development. What they need is more sort of internal sort of freedom. They can have more access. Their need is sort of very basic freedom and freedom, religion, and our freedom of speech and everything. I think those are the very, very important sort of matter, you can say, very important things that need. I think material development is just bringing some temporary comfort and temporary sort of satisfaction, but if people need more long-term sort of happiness and long-term, I think satisfaction, they need more than material development.
You're known to be a leader who is from an ancient tradition, but you have a very modern outlook, and you're concerned about the planet, you're concerned about climate change. Right now we're in Paris, and there's been heavy downpour, there's flooding, and we see extreme weather conditions around the world, including Tibet. What concerns you for the planet?
I think lots of the climate, environmental disaster, or maybe you could say environment issues. I think it's all man-made issues. So that I think it's we human beings have the responsibility, and I think we should understand that, because otherwise it's very difficult to sort of have some sort of positive change. And also I think all the sort of everything like media, or maybe all the sort of informations, they're increasing our sort of human greed and human desire. That's why I think we should control our desire, we should understand what we want and what we need, differentiate between, because we want everything actually, but what we need is maybe it's little, not that much. But natural resources, they have the limitations in natural resources, but we don't have the limitation. Human greed, we don't have the limitation. That's why we should control, otherwise it's will become a big disaster.
Over to a fun question. I've noticed clips of you playing on your laptop, and I know that you're a big supporter of tech as well. Do you WhatsApp the Dalai Lama?
Not really, because I think His Holiness, I don't think His Holiness have WhatsApp. I don't think His Holiness have smartphone. I think I'm not really contacting them daily based. If I need something, maybe they're going through some official lines. But I think I do see it's a very important sort of matter, because now things changed. We can't be very traditional. I think we should sort of have this kind of new access, so that we can have more sort of direct connection or maybe contact, so that it's very important.
So you think it's time to switch from telepathy to telephone for you?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
So the world comes to the Karmapa to learn from the Karmapa. What do you learn from your followers?
I think until now, I can continue this, take this responsibility, or maybe you can say play the role of Karmapa. I think until now I've survived, but the biggest reason I can survive, I think, because of the support and love given by you can say followers or maybe friends. That is the sort of the main source of energy.
Your Holiness, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.